Three, two, one. Hey, everybody. I'm David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks, which is this here podcast. With my co-founder, Daniel Frankel, we are doing our midweek check-in on all things technology, media, and telecom, alongside our media partner, Media Play News. Lots happening this week, as it seems like happens every week. But boy, we got opening day in baseball, a little more complicated this year for lots of reasons. Josh tomorrow, a week in the job at Disney, and already stuff's blowing up. Not his fault. He just gets to clean it up. So let's take a swing at the final collapse of the regional sports network business, or near final collapse. There's still a few out there. But what's going on? You're the RSN man.
Well, it's been a 7-year saga since Sinclair Broadcast Group vastly overpaid for Rupert Murdoch's sports channels. You may recall in 2019.
Yeah. Well, technically what it was, by the time they bought them, I think technically Disney had bought most of Rupert, and the RSNs were thrown in, but they had to divest them.
Yeah, like it was part of that big, gigantic deal for
$71 million deal, $71.3 billion deal that brought the Fox Studios and a bunch of other stuff and part of Hulu, et cetera, et cetera. So this got spun out.
Bob Iger says, I'm too smart to buy linear networks at this point.
No, he didn't have a choice because they already had ESPN and they had to divest.
It pays $9.6 billion for linear channels. A year later, the pandemic hits, teams, most of the baseball season, most of the regular season basketball season, NHL, very disruptive to channels that focus on most of the local games on these channels, your national games.
Yeah, if you have no games, you got no channel, right? I mean, you can only run so many 2013 World Series games or whatever.
So cord cutting hits, and all of a sudden, this arduous multi-billion-dollar debt is hard to pay off. The channels, which are being managed by an entity set up by Sinclair called Diamond Sports Group, go into Chapter 11 restructuring in March 2023. Everybody realizes that linear pay TV is in trouble and sports networks have a finite lifespan. But I think the belief was at that time that the bankruptcy will be short-lived. They'll restructure some team deals that are a little arduous at this point, and we'll get back to the kind of linear wind down as we know it, the slow sunset. It didn't work out that way. That bankruptcy went on for nearly 2 years.
I should call this backdrop I have the slow sunset because, man, that is a good term for it because, man, it has been fading into, twilight gradient for a while now. And boy, this is a big one. We're here on opening day. Who's still with the one that brung them, right? Anybody? I mean, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cubs.
So that
anybody else?
It was over 15 teams, I think, at one point that were under the Bally. It was branded as Bally Sports. That they paid the Bally's Corporation paid to, I guess Sinclair paid to license our name, or the other way around. So the Bally Sports channels, some of the teams renegotiated their deals. Some walked away, like the Padres said, we're not going to take that money, and went to the league and decided to show their games in the 23 season a different way. Finally, the latter half of 2025, they exit Chapter 11, and success was short-lived. By January of this year, he rebranded Mainstream Sports. That was Diamond Sports Group. And
no, that was Diamond by Bally.
Right.
This is the third name in
the
6
rebranded
years.
Channels. FanDuel Sports could not pay the bills to the teams. But all 12 Major League Baseball teams that were under the umbrella last season will begin their seasons with new local sports distribution. We're talking about the bulk of their games. 20, 30.
Right.
Manfred didn't have a good relationship with Chris Ripley and the rest of Sinclair. There was a lot of acrimony there. You could go deep on that. But I just there's so many areas in the fortresses to attack here. I'm just going to talk about the fate of the teams. Atlanta Braves, Kansas City Royals, Cincinnati Reds, Detroit Tigers, California Angels, Miami Marlins, just some of the teams that are affected. Virtually all of them have partnered with Rob Manfred and the league in some ways. For instance, most of them have a relationship where the league produces their games locally. It's usually about 140 games. The other 20, 22, whatever it is end up on national networks like ESPN, Turner, Fox. Those that aren't subject to local blackout are shown on these sort of hardworking local stations. Hardcore fans have to have these channels. It distributes it through MLB.TV, which is the league's $30 a month, $150 a season streaming service. And there's a break. If you're like a Reds fan, you can get the Reds for less than that, but it's still distributed.
Well, given the up and down Reds career seasons in recent years, it's probably really good that they have a little discount there. But that's just a
Yep.
Cardinals fan talking. So what can I say?
Instead of like $30 a month, it's $20 a month, but you only get the Reds games.
Right. But it should be clear though, that's okay for a lot of Reds fans or
Right.
whatever team, because baseball is very, very local specific. You know, one of the challenges that baseball has, and it's the reason why ESPN pulled back from that $550 million a year deal that it had for the national games and then led to being chopped up in lots of different pieces, was because people, unlike the NFL, people really aren't that interested in Los Angeles with watching the Miami Marlins unless the Dodgers are mopping them up with the latest Shohei Ohtani mega bomb home run. They don't really care about the Marlins and Brewers, for instance, right?
Well,
That's
I
one of
mean,
the challenges.
in the sport region, southern state region, each team has about that many states that surround it that are in the TV footprint, give or take. Some have 4, some have as many as 7. I don't know what the average is. The deals are in some respects, so it's similar. MLB.TV will distribute your team, and we get access to that. If you want the full MLB TV, it's $30 a month, $150 a year. You get all the games without national blackout rights.
And that's Manfred's big plan, is to have everybody in there,
Right.
except the fact that it's hugely lucrative for the Dodgers, for instance, to have their own partnership with Spectrum Sportsnet,
Right.
and they get paid some insane, like $600 million a year
So let
for
me just
that.
wrap up. Yeah, so virtually all the teams have that streaming relationship. There are a few, virtually no variables. The Angels are kind of an outlier in that they own half of their channel. So they bought out the other half from Main Street, and now they own the channel. FanDuel Sports West, it was called. I don't know what it's going to be called now, but it's the Angels channel. The LA Kings, the LA continue to be on that channel. The Angels pay a licensing fee to the Kings to show their local games. It will keep all the existing pay TV contracts and stream games through MLB.TV. So that's an outlier. But most of the teams are doing, Gray has worked out deals with some teams to broadcast select games, like usually like 10 to 15 games a year on local stations. And pay TV deals are going down the wire. For instance, if the Braves, through their Braves Vision, I think it's called, it'll be stream on MLB.TV, but it will also be available through Charter and probably through other pay TV operators as time goes on.
Aren't the Braves just a particular outlier because they're owned by Liberty or partly owned by Liberty now? Isn't that right? By John Malone, who's got a piece of Charter, right? Big
Right.
shock. John Malone's everywhere. So I think that's part of that. So basically, the local stuff is changing. The national stuff is changing too. And it was going to be on ESPN, and now it's chopped up even more with, like, as you were mentioning, Fox and Turner, et cetera, but, or whatever they're going to call it in 6 months. That being said, or the Bleacher Report, I think is what they call it now. But that being said, the one that's interesting to me is Netflix. Today, they will carry the opening game of the season, the first of 2,442 or whatever it is, regular season games between the Yankees and the San Francisco Giants in San Francisco. They paid for just that game, which is kind of interesting. They also paid, and it's interesting, they also paid for just the Japanese rights to the recently concluded World Baseball Classic. And they got 31 million views out of that because that Japanese team was pretty good, even though I think it only made it to the quarterfinals. But hell of a team. And but they're like just picking their spots. Other guys are going, we're going to take a tranche of these things and plug them in to fill in part of our week's quasi appointment stuff. I kind of think the Netflix approach, big shock, is smarter than a lot of the other stuff tried on a national level or
Well, it's
even international level.
Major League Baseball rights come up in, I believe, 2028, national rights. And the league appears to be kind of on a roll. I mean, that World Series went between the Dodgers and Toronto went 7 games last fall.
And some, and 2 extra inning games.
Yeah,
One of which was really 2 games in one. 2-2 was like an 18-inning game, so you got 2 full games in one. So it was really like the old school World Series where you had 9 games practically, right?
it was the best live sports I'd seen in a while. The pace of the game with the pitch clock, the rules that have been enacted in the last couple of years have all been really accretive. It's on a roll, and if Netflix proves that it can go to Japan and produce that kind of audience, it's got to. I know. Management has said they're not really interested in big, expensive blocks of live sports, but baseball.
Well, it's what are you getting? So you're gonna drive a lot of programming to fill a hole for a possibly reasonable price. Get a lot of opportunity to wrap advertising around it. Great with your ad-supported tier, which they're trying to build up. But to me, the more interesting play is what they do in 2028 for postseason play, because that's where, the dog days from mid-July after the All-Star game until early September are the most desultory
Well,
games.
I did want to finish the regional sports network discussion in that it's a little different from basketball or hockey. There's a lot of games, and there's 82 games I think in both of
Twice
them.
as many. Twice as many. Literally twice as many.
160 games, and the preponderance of them, 130, 140, are local games. And now Rob Manfred has control over a big chunk, nearly half or maybe more of his team's local games. That's a big entity to sell nationally. Amazon, I think, had those thoughts a few years ago when it was still called Diamond Sports Group in Bally. I think they were thinking along those lines. It's a lot of content, and we call it local now, but I could see somebody swooping in on the national level, creating a sort of a walled garden of all these teams that pay an extra premium for. I don't know.
Well, I'll be curious to see if that audience proves out. I think that baseball has shown that postseason has an urgency to it, which is the sort of thing, and the tune in. In fact, the endless procession of games is such that they end up smearing. It's like I just want baseball in the backdrop while I'm cooking, right? As opposed to it's a playoff game at whatever round it is. This could end it, and this game, this specific game matters, and you want to tune into this game. You can't say that for the 2,400 other games other than maybe opening day. Netflix is going to lay down some cash for postseason, which will be a problem and a challenge that almost certainly will bring lots of harumphing from political types. So that'll be fun to watch in a couple of years. They want to keep football on local TV. They're going to want to keep baseball, on local cable? I don't know. They can't really do that. Anyway, Josh Tomorrow's been in the job a week. He's overseen from his mountaintop the cancellation of a rebooted Buffy the Vampire Killer because probably just too darned expensive. They told Sarah Michelle Gellar just before she was supposed to go out for her new movie premiere. Not bad timing. But also, more importantly, they pulled the plug on the deeply troubled Bachelorette latest season because of the problems with its star from the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So that's a chunk of change. But also an endangered TV franchise. And then this week, Bob Iger, before he left, did a few deals that were designed to kind of push big old Disney toward the future. One was a deal with OpenAI last fall after Sora launched as a social video app, freaked everybody in Hollywood out. They cleaned up the guardrails so it wouldn't be copyright violations left and right. And they did a deal with it for $1 billion and to put like 200 Disney characters available through non-human characters through the Sora app. So you could fiddle with them. That was supposed to give them, as Iger put it, a way in with younger audiences. This week, kind of out of the blue, really, OpenAI said, we're killing Sora. 6 months ago it launched. It was #1 for months. It was still rolling along. It had, I think, tens of millions of users.
You gotta love the AI business right now. I mean, if you're worried about a bubble suddenly bursting out of the blue, well, maybe you could consider that a major, the biggest AI company of them all, maybe can launch a product to some fanfare and then like 6 months later say, no, there's too much exposure. We can't see a good revenue model for it. Fuck it, route.
Yeah, and it is true that free app on your mobile, popular with folks to screw around with stuff, but it's very expensive to generate on a per token basis to generate video. And when you're not getting any money for it, like the Sora 2 video generating large language model lives on behind the paywall of ChatGPT, but it's no longer a standalone, separate trade and share and all that stuff kind of thing. At a time, it's important to remember OpenAI is about probably to do an IPO, an initial public offering, and it really needs to clean up its books. So having free programs that eat a lot of compute power, not a great look. And they've already got challenges about delivering actual business models that work. So they're pivoting more to productivity. Disney got kind of left at the altar here. You could just read between the lines on the statement they made, which was, "We learned a lot. Good luck. We understand. Moving on. We're going to talk to other AI apps, and they should. I think they can. They really could do a great, cool app with some of the things they've already learned, and some other partner like Claude from Anthropic that ties together all the different parts of the Disney experience for fans to market to them, connect them. Hey, this show's coming on. Here's a special on tickets to this theme park. Here's a deal on a cruise. Here's an experience, free pajamas, Star Wars pajamas. Here's a Lego set based on the newest Marvel show. But tying all that together, marketing it, connecting it, knowing who that person is or that family is across all the tentacles of Disney, I think could be incredibly powerful because they have the fan base
I
that
think
cares about Disney.
the feeling must be, great, we don't have to spend $1 billion. And I think part of the reason they spent that $1 billion was the kind of protection they get. It says, okay, we can't stop this potentially profoundly destructive tool from being developed. It's technology. It's going to get.
It's not even insurance against OpenAI, though there's some of that. I agree with you. I think it's insurance against Wall Street saying, what are you doing with AI? Right? It's really about that. It's like, well, we've got
There's
this deal
lots of
with
ways to
OpenAI.
take a bite of that apple that may be less expensive, and it's probably reassuring to know, great, we can legally challenge these guys and scare them and stop them.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that.
Yeah. The other thing that happened, which is I think also notable, was another Bob Iger deal that he did in his 4-year return, Bob Redux, was a $1.5 billion deal with Epic Games for two things. One, an investment into Epic, which makes the Unreal Engine, which is used to make like The Mandalorian and a lot of other virtual productions and things, as well as lots and lots of games. It's a brilliant graphics engine. But two, to create a Disney themed island or sort of self-contained space within the Fortnite platform, which is one of Epic's biggest properties. This week, Epic announced it's laying off 1,000 people because Fortnite engagement, it's still like the number one in the game space on PlayStation and Xbox, but it's fading. People are playing less. There are like 20, some crazy number, but like 20,000 independent games debuted on Steam alone. Never mind the PlayStation Store or the Xbox app or elsewhere on mobile. I mean, God only knows with Android, and so there are tens of thousands of games out there. So it's hard for even a powerhouse like Fortnite, which is now 9 years old, to compete. Kind of like, okay, so you did this thing with Fortnite. Now what? Because it's fading. Are you going to get on maybe Roblox? Are you going to maybe do a deal with Microsoft for Minecraft? Though Minecraft has a deal with Warner Brothers already for that last year's almost $1 billion hit, a Minecraft movie. Chicken Jockey. So, to have both those sort of forward-looking Iger deals not looking so good now. One dead, one not looking that lively, is interesting about where he's going to take that part of the company going forward, games and AI, which are intensely connected and to the audiences, the young audiences that Disney needs.
You want a blank slate as a corporate leader, carve your own destiny. This is
You don't want it too blank. Let's just be clear. You like it not overgrown, because then you got to hack things back. But you like some stuff sketched in, so you got some direction.
Fortnite burned pretty hot during the pandemic era, didn't it? I mean,
Oh boy, it sure did. Even through 2023, 2024, actually, it was still going really hot. They released another thing in 2023. They had 146 million monthly average users, active users. That's a big number. But it's down notably in terms of per player game time now, and they had staffed up too much. So even though they cut like 500 million in like contractors and empty spots and all that, they were still overstaffed for the level of engagement that they were
yeah,
getting.
to engage a youthful audience for as long as they did seems challenging.
Yeah, 9 years is a good run for many, 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 many titles. There's only a handful of really, I mean, Call of Duty, obviously, Grand Theft Auto, of course, which is insane, and the opposite, exact opposite of a Disney title. You know, Disney in the Grand Theft Auto world, that's a concept. It's like, oh, you're gonna have like thugs raping Mickey Mouse, you know? It's gonna be terrible,
You
but
should make that in Sora.
yeah, well, I suspect that might have come up.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Your audience is recoiling from that.
Yeah, that pungent image, as they like to call it. Anyway, it's a very interesting time to see, and I'll be fascinated to see where Demaro, who had games under him as the experiences guy, it's now under Dana Walden as number two, who's the chief creative officer and president. She's probably going to need to mine games for new IP. I think that's smart. I hope that she does that. But it'll be really interesting to see where they go next, what other AI companies they might partner up with. I mean, they've got some money. They didn't buy anything, unlike David Ellison. So they've got some cash and they're paying
Finally
down their debt from the Fox things.
down, but I'm hearing from various Hollywood news trades that the deal is not a slam dunk right now. I think, yeah, it was Deadline who had some Michael Singer, I think his name is, who is a policy guy who spends a lot of time in DC and I guess was close to the deal. And there's ruminations that the antitrust conflict could be too strong.
Well, and the other thing that's getting a little uncomfortable is the amount of money being put in by overseas investors. 3 sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East at a time when they may need to spend a little cash on some other things, and another billion from Tencent, I believe, the Chinese technology giant. And, it's all told, it's like $25 billion. So it's not an inconsequential sum of the overall thing, even if they don't have any governance controls
It's
in a
just
more normal time. That
$1.
would be in a normal time, that would be causing lots of alarm bells to go off
Yeah.
for something that's going to involve, ownership of CBS News and CNN, plus a broadcast network, plus et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, everything else. So we'll see if that actually resonates, particularly even in the MAGA world. There's a lot of America first, except when sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East come in. That's okay. I don't think that's going to play, given how the not a war is going on right now, and the split that it's caused within his own base. Never mind other parts of the polity. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Anyway, this is probably a good place to wrap this up. I am David Bloom, co-founder with Daniel Frankel, the guy next to me, of Next TMT. That's TMT. You can get our newsletters, our semi-weekly newsletters at nexttmt.com delivered to you right in your mailbox with all kinds of stuff about technology, media, and tech. You can also listen to this here podcast on YouTube. We are available live in various places, and you can just listen to us on audio, which I understand. I'm going to take a shower. I swear I'll look better on Spotify and Apple Music, among other fine purveyors of audio. Beautiful stuff. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Looking for sponsors ahead of NAB next month for our daily show. We'll be doing there, both podcast and written stuff. We'll be covering that fast scrolling show with our usual verve and comedy stylings. So give us a call at sponsorships at nexttmt.com.
Singular, not
Sponsorship, singular, but don't let that limit you.
allow yourself to experience some ROI. Work with us.
Yes, ROI, exactly. Anyway, with all that, let's just wrap this puppy up. Thank you, everybody. Great to be back.